Journalist David Bates sent me this message today. This thing with Eric Weinstein is extraordinary. He's been Twitter silent since October 15th. Deeply worried about Iran and Russia. Now he's in Italy with Lou Elizondo at a UFO conference? WTAF, what do you make of it? I responded, he has gotten sufficient corroboration to understand where this conversation is headed. And, well, that's what I make of it. As Bates later realized, however, Lou Elizondo wasn't at the symposium. Nevertheless, Weinstein's presence there is significant. There are some rather interesting slides from Weinstein's talk there, which we'll cover later in this video. It was the day after the Office of the Director of National Intelligence June 25th UFO report that seemed to clinch Eric Weinstein's attention on the UFO subject to new levels. As a consequence of that report, he wrote the following tweet thread a day later, responding to AI Adamu PhD, who stated, long-awaited declassified UFO report happens to be 9 pages that basically looks like Eric Weinstein's Twitter post. And Eric responds to it saying, responsible folks share with me, hoping that if I believe them, they won't have to share under their own name. I shared some of what was shared with me. My market saying is, early is another name for wrong. In UFO land, early is another name for presumed crazy. Time to apologize. To all the UFO people who were getting it right, I blew it. I thought you were bored, easily convinced, read too many sci-fi as kids, were easily taken in. I thought there was no way this could ambiguously exist in a world flooded with censors. I thought you were not getting it. I am very late to your party, and even having gotten the report mostly right, it has been exceptionally unpleasant to get in front of it by even a few months. I can only imagine how it feels after the many years the U.S. has gaslit you all the while knowing you are not wrong. A lot of UFO people are nutty. But you, the careful community that called balls and strikes as best you could with limited information, deserve not only rehabilitation in the minds of the public, but some official recognition that you are to be listened to in the future. Thank you. I believe you now when you say that there is even much more high-quality data available, but that it has not been released. At a personal level, you are right. I was wrong. Thanks for letting me join you at the last minute in the few months before the report. I'll listen more. I also wanted to say to the non-UFO community that whatever I got right largely didn't come from me. It came from patriots, fellow scientists, and others who were not taken in the way I was. All I did was a bit of filtering and aftermarket analysis given the gravity of the issue. I shared the following tweets of Eric Weinstein with you very recently, but for the sake of this video, it's important that I share them with you again. These tweets were made after he was given essentially a briefing by Elizondo on UAP. On October 12th, Edmund Finkeldink wrote, based on what you know, can you speculate a time frame for further disclosure, either from individuals or government? To which he responds, not yet publicly. Ariel Elizabeth writes, do you believe something world-changing will happen within your lifetime? To which he responds, you aren't going to have to wait that long. Those two comments made by Eric Weinstein presumably were informed by his meeting with Luis Elizondo that he had recently, in which Luis Elizondo gave him a briefing on the UFO situation. David Bates pointed out something very shrewd regarding those comments by Eric Weinstein and others that I did not share with you just now. In his article that published on October 22nd titled, Eric Weinstein Speaks at a UFO Disclosure Symposium in Europe, he writes, remarkably, he essentially echoes here regarding the tweets I just shared with you, remarks made in 2021 by Harris, that's Sam Harris, who said that on 3 occasions within the space of a few months, he had been included in high-level talks about the reality of UFOs. Among his remarks,
this is probably premature to even talk about this, but, I have someone reached out to me and has assured me that, I'm going to be on a Zoom call with, former heads of, the CIA and Office of Naval Research and people, whose bona fides are very easy to track. And they're concerned about the messaging around all of this to the public and dampening down panic and conspiracy theories. But what is being promised here is a disclosure that is, frankly, either the most alarming or the most interesting thing in the world, depending on how you take it. But it's not a representation of the facts that will give scientific skeptics any comfort. And that's just, we're faced with the prospect of having to apologize to the people we've been laughing at for the last 50 years who have been alleging that, they've been abducted or that, cattle have been anally probed. Pick your punchline.
Sam Harris goes on to say.
But anyway, what's being promised is much more interesting imagery still to be released. And it has been reported thus far in the Washington Post. So it's not merely this private representation I've got.
This statement by Sam Harris is from June 6th, 2021. He said someone reached out to him and assured him that he'd be on a Zoom call with former heads of the CIA and Office of Naval Research and people like that. I don't know if he ever clarified that ever happened. But what I can say is that Luis Elizondo, I believe it was on Kurt Jaimungal's podcast, Theory of Everything, but I'm pretty certain he was asked this question: did he ever get in contact with Sam Harris? And Luis Elizondo responded that he doesn't even know who Sam Harris is. So the reason I'm elucidating this is because I don't want people to think that it was Elizondo that got in touch with Sam Harris. Clearly, that's not the case. It was other people that apparently were or are high-level officials within the United States government. In these statements, Harris says something really interesting, and I quote, "But anyways, what's being promised is much more interesting imagery still to be released." So bear in mind that on 3 separate occasions, Harris talked about being contacted by high-level government officials, I guess ex-government officials, extremely high level, or at least those that are associated with the government. I'm not completely clear on this. And I'm assuming that part of what he was told is that more interesting imagery will be released beyond the 3 UFO gun camera videos that were released. Now, in the run-up to the June 25th UFO report, I recall that Elizondo was bullish about it, and then later he became a little bit more pessimistic. Now, recognize that there are different interests within the government. Some within the government want this to come out and be clarified to the American public, and some are vehemently against it and want it to remain insulated from the American public and ultimately, as a byproduct, the world at large. So there's this push and pull that seems to constantly be happening within the government in regards to this process of transparency on UAP and what the government actually knows. In this light, very interestingly, Luis Elizondo spoke about a UFO video, 23 minutes in length. He spoke about it on Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on July 12th, 2021. Here's the snippet of the conversation. Jimmy asks, "What does the video look like? Is it grainy like the stuff that has already been leaked, or is this something that is definitive?" Elizondo responds, "No, it's definitive and perplexing. Because every time you think you're like, okay, that's what I'm looking at, all of a sudden, bang, it changes. I can't go into any more than that because I'm walking this fine line. I suspect that at some point it's going to come out. My hope is that it would come out during like some kind of public hearing, though wouldn't that be grand? Everybody can see it for themselves. There's other ones too that are equally compelling." So it's plausible that at the time Sam Harris was apparently told that more imagery was going to come out, that it was planned for the 23-minute video to come out, but then that later was shelved and the plans changed. In this same sort of light, on May 12th, Eric Weinstein wrote on Twitter, quoting Matthew Van Vive, "Interesting, It's a question I've been asking myself for 11 months. Why did Harris say 3 times he's been contacted, etc., then just shut up without any further explanation? At least you have a possible explanation. Have you heard other plausible ones? Weinstein responds, for those of you speculating on channels reaching out to Sam Harris, myself, and others on UFO UAP, there was a minimum of 1 planned dissemination that got called off for reasons unknown. I'm not at liberty to discuss, but I can say why people like Sam Harris are likely to be quiet. What has so far been released to the public by government has been minimal. No one I know wants to incinerate credibility, becoming a true believer over a tiny number of relatively low-quality U.S. government videos, which at least to me prove absolutely nothing. So then, why be interested? Now, as I understand it, Sam Harris, Eric Weinstein, and others in their orbit were advised and contacted prior to the UFO report that published on June 25th, 2021, to prepare them so that they could wrap their heads around the reality of UFOs and consider how they might help the public to do the same. So this is how I discovered that Eric Weinstein was in the micro country San Marino talking about UAP and disclosure from Wolfgang's Twitter account. Some slide by Eric Weinstein at the International UFO meeting in San Marino. So San Marino is a very interesting place. It's a micro state surrounded by north central Italy, a mountainous region. And I'm not going to go fully into it. Christopher Sharp has been covering this on his outlet Liberation Times, and I'll just give you a quick excerpt from one of his articles from January 13th titled, San Marino, One Step Closer to Making Historic UFO Requests at United Nations. ICER and CUN President Robert Pinotti met with San Marino's 2 head of state this week to discuss Project Titan, a proposal that would see San Marino make a historic United Nations request for the creation of periodic UAP UFO conferences under their aegis. And I think, as I understand it, people such as scientists would come to this conference to discuss the UAP enigma. I'm going to go ahead and read 3 of the slides that were accompanied by Eric Weinstein's lecture in San Marino. The map is not the territory. General relativity is not reality. Faster than light is impossible within general relativity. The singularities show that one can likely do to Einstein what Einstein did to Newton. Einstein's theory is merely the map, not the territory. UFOs equal hope. If there is no one here, we are likely doomed. If there is something here, we likely can leave. It is close to being that simple. UFOs aren't merely interesting or fun to think about. They may be our best way out. Watch the news about Putin and COVID. It's going to continue to get worse. UFOs. If humanity can escape, it almost certainly means that there is not only physics beyond Einstein, but that this post-Einsteinian physics has new degrees of freedom. More fields, particles, spatial dimensions, and temporal dimensions. Einstein cannot be broken by faster than light within general relativity. It is pointless, but he can be avoided by a new theory. If we can leave, everyone else may be able to visit. There is no moat. The odds of casual alien visitation skyrocket if and only if there is a meaningful post-Einsteinian SM physics. True confessions. Ufology is a danger to both national security and fundamental physics. So what's the problem? Ufology is currently both light entertainment and serious study. The former is chasing away serious scientists from the latter. Mountains of indirect evidence for existence of something profound. 0 solid direct evidence in 2 years of looking at this topic. 0. This seems impossible. No story makes the above 2 facts make sense. Over-focus on technology is everywhere. Under-focus on science is baffling. No one knows spinors, bundles, QFT, etc. Have encountered 0 leading physicists or differential geometers. High-quality information is mixed with rumors, BS, and ghost stories. Stigma and non-disclosure chases away the people who could make progress. So Eric Weinstein actually attended this conference as an unaffiliated observer, and this tweet that was published today gives greater clarity on why he spoke at the conference. Alexander Wolfson wrote, Eric Weinstein, can you provide any commentary to your slides now circulating on Twitter, please, or a link to your talk? From the looks of your slides, this was genuinely novel thought on the topic. Weinstein responds, I was not expecting to speak. The guest of honor, Lou Elizondo, became unavailable at the last minute. I was asked to step in. As a courtesy, I agreed and shared some ideas that represent no one but myself as a private U.S. citizen working with publicly available info. Specifics? I'll close out the video with this tweet from Stand for Better. In February, I hung up on a call with a senator's staff. One was a national security advisor. UFOs, UAPs were real, were not human. The senator had seen classified ISR footage of these vehicles. I sat in shock. It's time. It is time. Now, recollect that in May of 2022, in one of Weinstein's tweets, he said that one planned dissemination got called off. He was not going to elaborate. I wonder what that dissemination encompassed. And in the run-up to the June 25th, 2021 UFO report, Sam Harris said that it was promised that, something to this effect, it was promised that much better imagery was to be released. Better than, for example, the UFO videos that were released. That didn't happen either. So it seems that something was planned if what Weinstein and Sam Harris and presumably other people in their orbit were told about was accurate. But then it got called off. And yet right now, very soon, we are going to get the next UFO report due at the latest on October 31st, which is why I like to call it the Halloween UFO report. That should be very interesting to see what kind of information we're given. I've heard people say that because of the UFO office is understaffed, it's not going to be very impressive. I've heard other people say that it will be impressive. And as I shared in an earlier video, James Fox, the director of the movie Moment of Contact, The Phenomenon, and others, was told by somebody within the UFO task force that basically his release of the Moment of Contact time was very well timed because something very significant is going to happen at the end of October. We're almost at the end of October. So I don't know what's down the pipe. All I can say is that I do think we're in the midst of a process, a messy process. Some people in the U.S. government want this to come out. Some don't. The United States Congress absolutely, in a bipartisan fashion, want this to come out and do not trust the Department of Defense in how they've dealt with the UAP subject. As far as I can tell, that is an unambiguous fact. We are living in interesting times. And I anticipate that it will only get more interesting. And I'm happy to get this video up. And I got another one planned real soon. And right when I finish uploading this bad boy, I think I'm going to just get working on it because that's just what I do. I've been working real hard. So please don't forget to subscribe. And since I've been uploading so often, now may be a good time if you were thinking about it to become a patron or to become a YouTube member or to buy some merch or to give a one-time donation. All of those possibilities are in the description below. But of course, if you just slap a like on this bad boy, I will appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching. I can't even say watching. Thank you so much for watching. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all patrons, YouTube members, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.